Edward Bennington has been charged with arson. It's alleged that he poured petrol into the letterbox of the home of Mr. Jeremy Clements and ignited it, and that he'd written in blue paint on the pavement, "Stop screwing my wife." The defendant, Edward Bennington, is in the witness box being cross-examined by the prosecution.
Mr. Bennington, we have been told by Mrs. Kent that you telephoned the Clements house at 4:05 on the day of the fire and that you spoke in a threatening manner. Now, is that true?
I don't know. Don't remember.
Well, do you remember meeting your friend, Richard Frost, in a pub at lunchtime on the same day and speaking to him at some length and with considerable emotion of your suspicions regarding your wife and her employer, Mr. Jeremy Clements?
Yes, I remember that, yes. I remember going on about it to Dickie.
Oh, you do remember that? Well, you told Mr. Frost that you intended catching the 3:15 train to Fulchester, and yet we have this sworn testimony that you were telephoning the Clements house just after 4 o'clock, which would mean that you were not on that train, but still in London.
Don't know, I don't remember. Sorry, I don't remember. I must have caught some train back here because I was asleep in my bed when the police arrived the next morning.
Well, the police called at your house and charged you at 11:45 on the morning of July the 23rd.
No, but I was still in bed.
Which means that you could have caught either the 5:45 train from London or the 9:07.
Yes, I could have done that. But on the other hand, if I'd caught the 5:45, I think I'd have noticed postmen and milkmen and things when I got in. I'd remember that, I think.
Do you often suffer from these lapses of memory when you've been drinking?
Oh, yes, quite a lot. I sort of cop out altogether, if you know what I mean. I usually hear from other people the things that... quite extraordinary things that I've got up to the night before. Flowers have to be sent, letters of apology dashed off.
Yes, we have evidence, Mr. Bennington, that you were in this West End pub at lunchtime on July the 22nd until about 2:30. After that, we know that you telephoned Mr. Clements' house at just after 4 o'clock that afternoon. We know that you were drunk. And you were saying that from 4 o'clock onwards, you don't know where you were. For all you know, you might have spent the night punting on the Serpentine.
Yeah, for all I know.
Yes, well, I put it to you that that time was spent painting an obscene message on the pavement outside the Clements house, that you procured a can of petrol, that you poured some of it into the letterbox, and that you set fire to the Clements home. Now, isn't that what happened?
No, not possible, no. I just wouldn't do that sort of thing. I'm sorry, I can't produce any witnesses. I've no idea what train I caught back here to Fulchester. I vaguely remember a taxi taking me to the station from some nightclub or other, but I'm sorry, I can only remember bits.
I have no further questions.
No re-examination, my lord.
You may go back to the dock, Mr. Bennington.
I call Mr. Donald Bennington. You are Donald James Bennington of 18 Kingsborough Crescent, Cirencester.
Yes, I am.
You are employed by the Ministry of Health and Social Security.
Yes.
You are Edward Bennington's brother.
Yes, I am.
Does he telephone you from time to time?
Yes.
Regularly?
Erratically, I would say, at all hours of the day or night.
So there would be nothing unusual about a telephone call from him late at night?
Nothing at all.
Will you tell us the last time that he called you?
It was the night of July 22nd.
What time was that phone call, Mr. Bennington?
About 2:30.
Could you tell at all where he was ringing from?
No, it was an ordinary STD call.
You weren't aware of any particular background noise?
No, I was not. I was awakened in the middle of the night.
Was the phone call from a call box?
Definitely not.
So he could have been at his home?
Yes, indeed.
For how long was he on the telephone speaking to you?
Oh, about 5 minutes or so, I should say.
Thank you, Mr. Bennington.
Do you and your brother see much of each other?
We don't see each other at all. As a matter of fact, this is the first time I've seen him for 15 years.
So you were not exactly close?
No. Edward is 12 years younger than me. I left home when I was 18, so we never knew each other well.
You didn't keep in touch at all?
I saw him at Christmas, of course, when my father was alive. My mother died when Edward was born. When my father died, he was 13. I offered to look after him, naturally. But some master at his school arranged a kind of scholarship for him at a boarding school in Suffolk.
And during those years at school, did you see much of him?
Twice. Both times he simply arrived at my digs in Cissister. I wasn't really expecting him, and I never knew why he came. He didn't stay long either time.
He didn't spend the school holidays with him?
No. Obviously, again, I offered, but his school arranged all kinds of holidays abroad. He always went on those.
And you haven't seen him, you say, for 15 years. What was the occasion of your last meeting?
My wedding.
And yet you say you often speak to each other on the telephone.
Often. He rings me regularly, or rather I should say irregularly, as it's always very late at night, very late indeed.
What on earth does he ring you for? What does he find to talk about, this brother whom you never see?
He asks me questions about the furniture.
The furniture?
Yes, the furniture, carpets, paintings, books, all the things we had in our home when our father was alive.
What sort of questions does he ask you about the furniture?
Oh, about where things were in the house, the colour of things. He seems to want to know exactly how everything was.
Had he usually been drinking when he phoned you?
Invariably.
And late at night. It must have been very inconvenient for you.
Inconvenient is hardly the word. He wakes up the entire household. If I lose patience with him and ring off, he simply rings back again immediately. And I don't hold with taking the phone off the hook. There might be an emergency of some sort. So I find it expedient just to answer his question, whatever it may be. And I must say he's always very polite. When I've told him whatever it is he wants to know, he thanks me, says goodbye, rings off.
What did he talk about on the night of July the 22nd, the night of the fire?
He wanted to know the colour of the pattern on the dinner service we had at home.
Did he seem more drunk than usual?
No, but I wasn't paying particular attention. Had enough difficulty trying to remember what the colour of the pattern on the dinner surface was.
What,
The green and grey.
He simply asked you the one question. He didn't say anything else at all?
Oh, no, he never does. Never an inquiry about my family, about my own health.
Mr. Bennington, how often did your brother make these calls?
It varied. Sometimes he telephoned 2 or 3 times in 1 week, and then several weeks would go by without him ringing at all. I actually worked it out at an average of about 2 calls a month, as I told my sister-in-law when she asked me.
Your sister-in-law, Mrs. Jocelyn Bennington?
Yes,
So
Edward's
you-
wife, Jocelyn.
You did see your brother's wife, although you didn't see your brother.
No, I never met her. I just talked to her the one time she telephoned.
And when was that?
Oh, early in the year, this year, January, February.
Why did she ring you?
I've told you to ask about these telephone calls of Edward's. I must say I was rather shocked.
Shocked?
Yes, I told her I couldn't possibly do what she asked. After all, there is such a thing as family loyalty. I may not like Edward's way of life. In fact, I find it quite deplorable. But he is my only brother. Besides, as I said to her, I simply don't approve of it.
Approve of what, Mr. Bennington?
Divorce. She told me she was going to divorce Edward. And she wanted me to write a report of these phone calls of his so that she could give it to her solicitor.
Yes, well, things had reached a rather desperate pitch between your brother and his wife, so it's not really surprising, is it, that the possible eventuality of divorce had crossed her mind?
She didn't sound desperate to me. Really, rather more businesslike, if anything. That's what offended me. She seemed to assume, because I was not on good terms with Edward, that I would cooperate with her, connive with her, in fact, in legally proving mental cruelty against him.
Surely these frequent and, I must say, rather peculiar telephone calls might indicate just that.
Not at all, I can't agree. Edward drinks too much. Of course, I find this very unfortunate, deplorable, as I said. But when he's drunk, he obviously becomes nostalgic for the home he knew as a boy. Naturally, I found these telephone calls inconvenient and maddening, but also rather sad. That is what they indicated to me.
Mr. Bennington, the telephone call your brother made to you on the night of July the 22nd in no way constitutes an alibi for the crime. You do realize that, of course.
No, I don't think I do.
Well, as far as we know from the police reports, the fire was started sometime after 3 a.m. Your brother telephoned you at 2:30.
Surely it's hardly likely that he would telephone me about a family dinner service just before going out to burn a house down.